Well, back in Nigeria, the House of Representatives ad hoc committees on subsidy regime and fuel consumption continued its investigative hearing on the amount of fuel consumed with a demand for receipts of payment by indigenous companies. Now, with many of the records before the committee showing inconsistencies in figures, the committee is asking stakeholders in the sector to appear before it to explain their roles as the lawmakers continue to question the rationale behind money spent on subsidy and not accounted for.
Lifted demurrage $25 million, $960 million, $753,000.
But more often than not, the pricing for the crude is usually determined by NNPC in the respective DSDP contracts.
We want to know who is the lead consortium, and you should identify the partners in that consortium, and you should tell us the role and responsibility of each partner in that consortium.
We're not withholding anybody, like the chairman said. We want to determine what did you really bring in. Did you consume all that you brought? So you are more important to us in what you brought than those who dropped out. Want to know what you brought in.
The authority is here they have come for inspection, yes, depot inspection, so they are here to issue the license for this. We applied November 2021.
2021?
Yes, sir.
Will it take that long time to have the license? So you're operating illegally?
No, we are not, sir, because we...
Can we see the evidence of payment and so on? What's the authority not represented?
Do you have an accompanying proof to show what the receiver tank has got from you, so we can back check to ensure that they correspond?
Well, for more than 4 months now, different ad hoc committees of the House of Representatives have been investigating the crisis in the oil sector. Unfortunately, none of these committees have been able to come up with its report and, more importantly, solutions to the crisis in the sector. Well, we have in the studio a member of the House Committee investigating the fuel subsidy regime, Honorable Sergius Ogun, representing Esan Northeast, Esan Southeast Federal Constituency in Edo State. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you know what they say, if you want something, an assignment to fail, you give it to committees. Now, when you have multiple committees actually trying to unravel solutions or the problems before the solutions, it makes it even more difficult, doesn't it? I mean, you have committee on refineries, committee on daily fuel consumption, and committee on subsidy. What exactly is it you're trying to achieve with all of these committees?
Yes, well, thank you for having me again. I think it's because it's a serious issue, so that's why the attention there. There's every possibility from what I heard from some of the government officials that there might be no capital budget next year. The government is going to submit the budget to the National Assembly maybe in another 3 months or 2 months.
Right.
And there might be no capital because we are spending practically everything we get on subsidy. So that we have different committees shows that National Assembly is living up to their responsibilities to those that have sent us here, those that we are representing. So like you have enumerated them, there's a committee on the rehabilitation of the refineries. There's a committee to determine daily consumption. Now there's a committee to look at the entire subsidy regime. So it is an important issue, and that's what we should give that attention.
What are you finding so far at all? I mean,
well, there's a whole lot out there that we need NNPC to speak to. We have gotten documents from the marketers, and the figures don't add up. Now, if we give, as you would have heard of this before, 445,000 barrels per day, that the refineries were supposed to be refining in Nigeria. But because refineries are not working right now, they are taking that out, trade by barter. Direct sales, direct purchase, DSDP. So it's a trade by barter. So they give to marketers. They give them the crude to bring in gasoline, to bring in PMS, petrol. Okay. That money, the money for the sale of the 445 is supposed to be credited to the FAC account, because it's a federation crude for the federation to share, because it's supposed to be sold. Now, the NNPC is not crediting the FAC account, one. Then we are doing trade by barter. I mean, you understand what trade by barter is.
Yeah.
Despite the trade by barter, we are still spending trillions. Yeah. So the thing is, where is that money going to? We have heard that we consume, our daily import is about 63 million liters a day. We've also gotten figures from NNPC that we have consumed other times about 104 million liters a day. So if our daily import is 63 million, how are we consuming 104 million liters? You know,
so at the crux of this issue is consumption, level of consumption. I have a two-part question for you, and I need you to answer the first one before I go ahead with the other part of it. Has there been any payment of subsidy by the federal government without approval from the lower and upper legislative chambers in Nigeria?
There's even from 2015, when this government came in, there has been no budget for subsidy because they say they're not subsidizing anything. But they turn around, if you remember, on the Minister of State for Petroleum then, Ibe Kachuku, he said that they were going to remove subsidy. I don't know what happened. You know.
And that the money would be used to fix the refineries.
And then they turn around some few months later and said it's now under recovery. So the National Assembly has not budgeted money.
So subsidy has not been put in the budget since 2015?
Yes.
Who is approving the monies by the federal government? Because there are committees, the recommendations from the finance committees to your committees for subsidy. What has happened in this while? Because I'm wondering, if we are approving money for the federal government to spend for subsidies, how come we're not able to check level of consumption at that period? They're just dishing out money, approving money. Yeah,
what they have said is under recovery. That's what they said they have been doing. It's only now they are talking about subsidy. It's only now. Because you look at the PIA, the period in the PIA, I think within 1 year of the PIA coming into existence, we should have deregulated completely. So they have moved that part to about 18 months now to allow the government to handle subsidy. So in the past, to answer your question, there was no subsidy in the budget. It was they claim it was under recovery.
You know, for the benefit of our viewers, we'd really like to know exactly what's the difference between under recovery and subsidy. Help us understand.
It's one and the same thing, basically. So now, I think it's just the smartness in that system. Because they are telling you to say, okay, fine, we are bringing in this amount of money, but we are trying to recover the extra cost on behalf of the people. So that's the subsidy. But they just turn it around and call it under
recovery. That's quite interesting. So, what are the chances, you know, that fuel crisis will end in Nigeria? Is there a possibility that with your intervention now and you looking at the books and saying, look, give us exactly what we're bringing in and what we're consuming, and help us understand or be sure that we're not paying for fuel that's going out of Nigeria's borders, you know, paying for the fuel that's consumed in the West Africa sub-region?
I don't really think that's the problem.
So what exactly is the problem?
The problem is the attempt, I mean, it's madness to spend 6 trillion in an economy
on subsidy
where we don't, on subsidy in an economy where we are struggling to even carry out infrastructure, where we are struggling to fund our capital projects, you know. So we think there are duplications in the system. So by the time we are through with this, we might be able to save the country some money. That's the bottom line.
Well, you see, I mean, the federal lawmakers seem as confused as Nigerians who don't understand what exactly is going on with subsidy payment. When you say, in fact, there's no even approval, there's no
since 2015.
You know, since 2015 in the budget for the federal lawmakers to scrutinize. But let me ask you, we've seen this pattern. It's not just now. You invite people to your committees. They do not appear before the committees. So one wonders, really, what's the purpose of this? You've invited the Minister of Finance. Has she shown up? If she doesn't show up, does it affect your work? How do you get the details?
Well, we actually have most of the information we need. That's the truth. Okay. So you cannot shave a man's head in his absence. So we want them to bring their own documents to authenticate what we have. So we can actually work with or without them. But the Minister of Finance cannot come out and say we're going to spend 6 trillion on subsidy. You are paying for what you don't know, and NNPC says we are not subsidizing. or they are not making any payments. Yet you are telling us you're going to spend 6 trillion. So you must come and, it's public money. So you must come and tell us how you are paying and what you are paying for. So she will come, like she has said, she will come, she will appear next week.
Right.
So, because she will have to come. But they explained to us clearly that they didn't get the letter on time.
Okay.
So it was actually yesterday morning that the director said he was told to come and represent the minister. But the minister will appear next week.
So since you say you actually know some of the answers to the questions, what exactly are these answers that you still seek to find or hear, you know, from the horse's mouth, from the minister, finance, and you know, whoever else needs to answer, you know, to these questions? What are you coming up with?
Yeah, we need them to speak to those documents.
Right.
We need to know what is the landing cost. The crude oil is FOB, freight on board.
Freight on board.
So who is paying for the vessel that's taking the crude oil out? Who's paying for the vessel that is bringing the PMS, refined PMS in? Then, are there insurance? We need to know that. So we need to know for how much is that petroleum product landing in our shores. Then from there, if we determine the landing cost, we can begin to add other costs to know.
Yeah, but for your findings so far, I want to get exactly, okay, like the landing cost that you just mentioned. What exactly is the landing cost? And what is the difference that you're seeing? And how is it affecting the queues at the filling stations?
Are there still queues?
Well, in some places you find them. I mean, it's difficult to tell these days.
There are still queues, at least here in Abuja.
Well,
every now and again.
The marketers are not talking, but we are supposed to have an NPC tomorrow.
Right.
So they should tell us all that, you know, how much is landing our shores, and then based on what we know, then we can now add 2 and 3 together to determine whether they're telling us the truth or not. But we strongly believe that we can save some money for the country, because we cannot continue like this. It's not sustainable.
Absolutely.
And that's music to the ears of many Nigerians, and of course the government, who's looking to save and get more money. Honorable Segas Ogun, thank you so much for being on the news tonight with us.
Thank you for having me.